Hey everybody, this is Dave Dugdale, learningdslrvideo.com. A lot of you guys know that I've purchased the 5D Mark III, and before I start shooting with the 5D Mark III a lot, I want to see kind of how it relates to my older Canon T2i 550D. And a lot of people have written in and asked, is it really worth $3,000 to upgrade? Because the T2i is $500 and the Mark III is $3,500. So a lot of people are, is it really worth it for video? So in this video, I want to kind of explain the differences between the two. All right, this video is all about video. I'm really not talking about stills or photographs in this video at all. All right, I know I'm going to probably get a lot of flack from you guys for comparing totally different price range cameras for video, but I want you to watch these next two clips from my last corporate video. One is from the T2i with a not so expensive lens, and the other is with the 5D Mark III with an L series glass. To give you more information for your guess, I'm going to show you before keying the green screen. The green screen kind of makes it hard because you can't look for things in the background like bokeh. It's not that easy to tell, is it? And at the end of the video, I'll let you know if your guess was right. In these tests, I'm using the exact same picture style, neutral, the contrast all the way down, the sharpness all the way down. I'm using the exact same lens on both cameras, and I'm having to move in closer or farther away because of the crop factor built into the T2i. In this shot of me, which I made sure I had accurate white balance before starting, it seems like the T2i is slightly warmer. Interesting that on the display, the 5D looked like it had more saturation in my red shirt, but on the scopes, it looks like the T2i has more saturation. Here I focused on the bush. It's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like the 5D is slightly sharper here. However, in this shot, it looks like the detail in the bark of the tree, the T2i looks sharper. Remember, I'm using the exact same lens. This one appears to have a tie for sharpness in the wood. So I'm not noticing that one particular camera is sharper than the other, which is kind of a good thing because when you think about it, the 5D Mark III got rid of a lot of moire and aliasing at the sake of sharpness. So it's good to see that the 5D Mark III at least isn't worse than the T2i. In terms of moire and aliasing, the 5D wins hands down against the T2i. But if you're looking for it, you can definitely find aliasing or moire patterns like you see here on the metal grate. I was kind of disappointed to see that the 5D Mark III and the T2i don't have that much difference in terms of dynamic range or latitude, as you can see in this really high contrasty shot. The Nikon D800, I know in this particular situation, would have done much better in the shadows. Where the 5D Mark III really shines, of course, is in the high ISOs. So the T2i, of course, doesn't do as well, but what I wanted to do with this test is not so much do night shots, because I don't shoot in pitch black all the time anyway, but what I wanted to do is see what happens when you shoot at a much higher f-stop number. Let's say you have a scene where the actors are moving around in your scene and you want to keep a lot of them in focus and you don't have a focus puller, let's say. Here at ISO 400, you can see a very similar image quality. However, you can see some noise in my blue shirt for the T2i. But when I bump it up to 6400, the 5D is very usable and the T2i has a bunch of noise and the color is starting to shift. Here is another look at ISO 400, but watch the wall behind me for the noise. When I go to 6400, you can see that the T2i falls apart badly. Side by side in really bright sunny situations, the T2i keeps up with the 5D Mark III surprisingly well. However, I will say that in bright sunny situations, when you're looking at both screens, the 5D Mark III is much easier to look at in a bright sunny situation without a viewfinder. Here's the 5D Mark III versus the D800. The clear winner is the Canon. This is with noise reduction turned on to standard on the Canon and normal for the Nikon. And just for kicks, I compared the T2i to the Nikon D800. Not a clear winner here in terms of noise, but remember the D800's strength is the dynamic range and latitude compared to the 5D. Let's say you have an inexpensive zoom lens like I do. On the T2i, using it when all the way zoomed in, it steps down to 5.6 for the f-stop, which makes it almost impossible to use in low light situations. But with the Canon 5D Mark III at 5.6, you can do surprisingly well. So it almost breathes new life back into your old crappy lenses. On the 5D Mark III, you only need one finger to change the aperture. Unfortunately, on the T2i, you need two fingers, which kind of stinks. On the 5D, you only have to hit one switch to go to movie mode instead of rotating the dial all the way around like you do on the T2i. The 5D Mark III fits in your hand so much better. The T2i seems like it's going to fall out of your hand. After working the 5D for a long period of time and you go to pick up the T2i, only then do you realize just how tiny the camera is. Also, the 5D Mark III has a headphone jack and the T2i doesn't. The 5D can be left out in the rain, the T2i not so much. So in terms of video mode only, these two cameras are extremely similar in low ISO, extremely well-lit situations. Yes, I know you're not going to get the same exact look in the background with all the bokeh with the full frame sensor, but man, these crop sensor cameras in a well-lit situation, low ISO, these cameras are very similar. Alright, let's see if your guess is right from the beginning of this video. The far shot is the 5D Mark III and the tight shot is the T2i. The point I'm trying to make here is if you've got a $500 T2i camera and you know how to light well, you can get really good results. You don't have an excuse to say, hey, my camera is not up to snuff. You can still go out and create awesome projects in well-lit situations with the T2i. Alright, well, I know what I'm about to say is overly dramatic simplification and totally not true, but when it comes down to it, the price difference between these two cameras in terms of video mode only is largely due to this one little button. I guess you could say it's a $3,000 button. Alright, remember that I only just picked up my first DSLR camera 2 years ago, so if you don't agree with anything I said here, that's totally fine. Alright, don't worry, I'm not going to get rid of my T2i. In fact, I might replace it with the T4i, which I'll be reviewing in about a month. Also, I've got another piece of item which I'm going to be reviewing, the steering wheel. This is the Fig Rig, so stay tuned for a review on that as well. Alright, talk to you guys later. Bye.